My daughter cried into the phone. The cruise has been canceled, Dad, due to lack of funds. I believed her, took her debts to heart, and unpacked my suitcases. The next day, my father-in-law called to thank me for giving her my place on the liner. Enjoy yourself, I said, hiding my anger. As soon as they boarded, I launched my revenge. In a panic, she called me 83 times. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The suitcase lay open on my bed like a promise about to be kept. I'd been working on it all afternoon. 3 Hawaiian shirts pressed and folded, 2 pairs of khaki shorts, swim trunks still with tags attached, and enough sunscreen to protect a small army from the Mexican sun. The cruise itinerary sat on my nightstand, dog-eared from repeated reading. 7 days along the Riviera, departing in just 3 days. Cabo San Lucas, Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlán, cities I'd only seen in travel magazines and Travel Channel documentaries. I stood over the suitcase with my packing list, checking off items with a blue pen. Formal dinner jacket for the captain's night? Check. Comfortable walking shoes for shore excursions? Check. Prescription sunglasses? Check. The excitement hummed through me like electricity coursing through old wiring. 63 years old, and this would be my first real cruise. My first time leaving the country since that college trip to Tijuana back in 1982. My phone rang, the generic ringtone echoing through the quiet house. Alma's name lit up the screen. "Hey, sweetheart," I answered, tucking the phone against my shoulder while folding a linen shirt. "Don't tell me you forgot something important. I've got my list right here if you need to compare notes." Her voice came through tight, strained, different from her usual warmth. "Dad, I need to tell you something about the cruise." I stopped mid-fold, the shirt suspended in my hands. "Everything okay? You're not getting sick, are you? They say seasickness can be pretty rough, but I read that those patches work wonders. We have to cancel." The words tumbled out fast, like she'd been rehearsing them. "Glenn's having some financial issues at work, and we just can't swing it right now." The shirt slipped from my hands onto the bed. My chest tightened. "Cancel? Alma, what happened? Is Glenn all right? Did something happen with his position? Do you need help?" No, we'll figure it out." Her tone shifted, defensive, almost brittle. We can't go." "I'm really sorry, Dad." My disappointment felt heavy, physical, like someone had laid a wet blanket across my shoulders, but I pushed it down where she couldn't hear it. This was my daughter. If she was struggling, my vacation didn't matter one bit. "Hey, don't worry about it. These things happen. Your financial security matters more than a vacation. Way more." "Thanks for understanding." Relief flooded her voice, loosening the tension I'd heard. "I have to go. Dinner's burning on the stove. I'll call you later, okay?" "Of course. Love you, sweetheart." The line went dead before she could respond. I stood there holding my phone, staring at the half-packed suitcase. The cruise brochure rested on top of my folded clothes. Glossy photographs of turquoise water and white sand beaches. Couples walking along pristine shores. I picked it up, running my thumb across the images. The paper felt expensive, substantial. The birthday party flashed through my mind. Exactly 1 month ago, on a warm May evening, Alma had handed me the envelope with those tickets tucked inside. Her smile had been so bright, so genuine, lighting up her whole face. "You deserve this, Dad. We're so grateful for everything you've done for us." Glenn had stood beside her, nodding, his arm around her shoulders. They'd looked so happy, so proud to give me this gift. Other family members had clapped, congratulated them on such a generous gesture. I walked to my desk in the small home office and pulled open the middle drawer. The birthday card was still there, tucked into the cruise documentation folder, alongside the printed itinerary and boarding passes. I lifted it out and read her handwriting again, tracing the words with my eyes. "Thank you for everything, Dad. This is just a small way to show our appreciation. We love you so much. Alma, Glenn, and the kids." My throat tightened, but I swallowed it back. Financial problems happen to everyone. Glenn was a good man, worked hard in commercial real estate. They'd get back on their feet. This was just temporary. We'd reschedule, maybe next year when things stabilized for them. I returned to the bedroom and began unpacking. Each item went back into its proper place. Shirts refolded into the dresser, organized by color and weight. Shoes lined up in the closet. Formal jacket returned to its garment bag. The methodical action soothed me, gave my hands something purposeful to do. This was just a setback. Temporary. Family came first, always had, and Alma needed to focus on her household finances right now. The cruise documents went into the middle desk drawer, filed neatly behind the birthday card. I closed the drawer with a soft click that seemed too loud in the quiet house. "Next year," I said to the empty room. "They'll figure things out by then." I made myself a simple dinner: grilled chicken breast, steamed vegetables, brown rice. Put on the evening news while I ate at the kitchen table. Went through my usual routine: dishes washed and dried, counters wiped down, coffee pot prepared for morning. But my eyes kept drifting to the calendar on the wall, where I'd circled the departure date in red marker. 3 days from now, I would have been boarding that ship, feeling the ocean breeze, watching Phoenix disappear behind me. I took the marker and drew a single line through the circle. Clean. Final. Decisive. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan rotating slowly overhead. The disappointment sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and immovable. But underneath it was something warmer: pride in my daughter for being honest with me, for trusting me enough to admit when things weren't going well financially. That's what family did. We supported each other. We understood. We made sacrifices. I closed my eyes, still believing in her completely. Morning light cut through the kitchen blinds in sharp angles. I sat at the table with my coffee and the newspaper, trying to focus on local news instead of the canceled cruise. The coffee tasted bitter, even with cream. My eyes scanned headlines without really reading them. My phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. I answered casually. "Hello?" "Clark! Clark Wood!" The voice boomed through the speaker, jovial and loud. "It's Floyd Cranston, Glenn's father. How are you doing?" I straightened in my chair. Floyd. I had met him maybe 4 times total. Holiday dinners, the wedding, one awkward barbecue. We weren't close. "I'm fine, Floyd. What can I do for you?" "I had to call and thank you personally for this incredible gift." His enthusiasm poured through the phone. "A Mexican Riviera cruise. I've dreamed about this type of vacation for years. Never thought I'd actually get to experience it." My coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. Everything inside me went cold and still. "What gift, Floyd?" "Don't be modest now," he laughed, oblivious. "Alma told us how you insisted I take your spot on the cruise." "Dad would want this for family," she said. "He'd want someone to enjoy it." "That's real respect for elders, Clark. You raised her right." The kitchen walls seemed to tilt. My hand lowered the coffee cup back to the table with exaggerated care, like I was moving underwater. "I see," I said. My voice came out flat, empty. "We're flying out tomorrow morning," Floyd continued, still riding his wave of excitement. "Glenn's excited. Alma's been packing all week. The kids are staying with Alma's friend. This is going to be the trip of a lifetime. Enjoy yourself, Floyd." The coldness in my tone finally penetrated at his enthusiasm. "Well, yes, thank you. I just wanted to say how much this means. Enjoy." I hung up. The phone sat on the table in front of me. I stared at it. My coffee grew cold. The newspaper lay forgotten, headlines meaningless. She hadn't canceled the cruise. She'd given my spot to Glenn's father, told him I'd volunteered it, made me look generous while stealing from me. I stood up slowly, walked to my home office, and sat at my desk. My movements felt mechanical, detached. I pulled open the file cabinet beside my desk and removed a folder labeled Second House, Rental Property. The property sat in a decent neighborhood 15 minutes away. 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, built in 1998. I'd bought it as an investment in 2010, thinking I'd rent it out for retirement income. Then Alma got married. She and Glenn needed a place temporarily after the wedding, just until they saved enough for their own down payment. 6 months, maybe a year. I'd handed her the keys, told her not to worry about rent until they were stable. That was 6 years ago. I opened my laptop and pulled up my banking records. The transactions scrolled past, a digital record of generosity that now felt like evidence. $8,500 for Glenn's mother's emergency surgery. Later, I'd seen photos on social media of their new SUV, purchased the same week. Alma, smiling in the driver's seat, caption, reading, "Finally upgraded our ride," $1,500 for unexpected medical bills, $1,200 for car repairs, $500 here, $800 there, always with promises to repay next month. Next month never came. At family dinners, Alma praised my generosity, my big heart, my willingness to help family. Never mentioned repayment, never brought up the mounting debt. I searched through my email, found the messages. Alma's words, preserved in digital amber. Dad, we're struggling this month. Could you help us out? We'll pay you back as soon as Glenn's commission check comes through. Another, I know we owe you already, but the kids need new clothes for school. Can you float us another $600? We'll settle up everything next month, I promise. The birthday party, her presentation of the cruise tickets, that sincere smile. You deserve this, Dad. All those people watching, applauding her generosity. Using my own money she'd borrowed and never repaid, to buy me a gift. Then stealing it back for her father-in-law. I opened a search engine and typed Arizona tenant eviction laws. Then family loan repayment legal options. Then verbal contract enforceability, Arizona. I took notes in my leather notebook, the same one I'd used during my urban planning career. Organized, methodical. Without a written lease agreement, Alma was legally classified as a guest at will in my property. Arizona law allowed property owners to terminate such arrangements with 30 days written notice. No cause required. The property deed sat in my hand. My name only. No legal claim from Alma whatsoever. She'd never contributed to the mortgage, never paid property tax, never signed any formal agreement. For 6 years she'd lived rent-free in a house worth $320,000. I looked at the calendar. Tomorrow they'd board a plane to Mexico. They'd sail away on my cruise, drinking Mai Tais and taking selfies at sunset, while I sat here having been too trusting, too generous, too much of a fool. Something settled inside me, cold, clear, perfectly calm. I picked up my phone and dialed a number from my professional contacts. The receptionist answered on the second ring. Miller and Associates Law Firm, how may I help you? Roberta Miller, please. My voice was steady, businesslike. Tell her Clark Wood needs to discuss property law, specifically eviction procedures and debt collection. I waited on hold, listening to classical music, watching the morning sun climb higher through my kitchen window. Clark? Roberta's voice came through warm, professional. It's been a while. What's going on? I need to schedule a consultation. I glanced at my notebook, at the organized list of grievances and dollar amounts. How soon can you meet? I hung up with Roberta Miller's receptionist and sat back in my desk chair. Monday at 10, 3 days from now. The appointment was scheduled, official, real. The scattered documents lay across my desk like pieces of a puzzle I'd been too blind to see. Bank statements, text messages, emails, 6 years of my daughter's lies, organized chronologically before me. I pulled my laptop closer and opened a fresh spreadsheet. Column headers, date, amount, stated purpose, supporting evidence. My fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. This was familiar territory. I'd built my urban planning career on organizing complex information into clear patterns. The first entry, March 15th, 2019, $8,500. Glenn's mother emergency surgery. I found the text message from that day, Alma's words frantic and desperate. Dad, Glenn's mom needs emergency surgery. They don't have insurance. Please, we'll pay you back as soon as we can. I transferred the money within an hour. 2 weeks later, the social media post appeared. Alma standing beside a gleaming white SUV, her smile brilliant in the Arizona sun. Finally upgraded our ride. Glenn surprised me. The post had 63 likes. My money had paid for those likes. I typed carefully. No surgery occurred. Funds used for vehicle purchase. Evidence. Social media. Post dated March 29th, 2019. The pattern emerged as I worked through the records. April 2020, $3,200 for emergency car repairs that couldn't wait. June 2020, $2,800 for unexpected medical bills. We're drowning. September 2020, $500 for back-to-school expenses. Kids need clothes. Smaller amounts scattered throughout. $800, $600, $450, $950. Each request came with urgency, with promises, with gratitude. Each promise evaporated like morning dew. I highlighted the bank transfers in different colors: yellow for amounts under 1,000, pink for amounts over 1,000. The statements transformed into a color-coded map of my own foolishness. Pink dominated the pages. By 8 o'clock that evening, my spreadsheet showed the truth in cold numbers. $34,000 in documented loans. $34,000 requested, received, never repaid. Each entry had supporting documentation, text messages where Alma wrote, "I'll pay you back next month, promise," or "Once Glenn's bonus comes through, we'll settle everything." The bonuses came. The settlements never did. I pulled another folder from my cabinet, the property deed to my second house. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, built in 1998, purchased by me in 2010 as an investment property. Located in a decent Phoenix neighborhood with good schools, currently valued around $320,000. The text exchange from 6 years ago still existed in my phone archive. I pulled it up, read Alma's message. "Dad, can we stay at your rental house temporarily? Just a few months while we save for our own place. We'll start paying rent as soon as Glenn's promotion comes through." Glenn's promotion came through 8 months later. The rent never did. I calculated quickly. 6 years and 2 months. If I'd charged even minimal rent, $200 monthly for a 3-bedroom house, that would be $74,400 in back rent. Add that to the $34,000 in direct loans, and my generosity totaled over $108,000. The number sat on my screen, stark and undeniable. I opened a new browser tab and searched Arizona tenant law, no written lease. The results loaded quickly. I read through statute after statute, taking notes on my legal pad. Without a written rental agreement, Alma was classified as a guest at will, not a legal tenant with formal protections. I could terminate her occupancy with 30 days written notice. No eviction lawsuit required unless she refused to leave. The process was straightforward, almost elegant in its simplicity. I wrote on my notepad, "Notice delivered Monday, expires mid-July." Tomorrow morning, Friday, Alma, Glenn, and Floyd would fly to San Diego. They'd board the cruise ship, my cruise ship, and sail away into the Pacific. They'd drink complimentary champagne, eat elaborate buffet dinners, take sunset photos from the deck. They'd post about their amazing vacation, their wonderful family trip, their gratitude for this incredible experience. Meanwhile, I'd sit here with my spreadsheets and legal research, preparing their homecoming surprise. The irony tasted bitter but satisfying. Let them enjoy their stolen vacation. 7 days of luxury purchased with deception. They'd come home to reality. I found a birthday card in my desk drawer, one Alma had sent 3 years ago. The front showed a father and daughter holding hands at sunset. Inside, her handwriting, "Thank you for being the most generous father anyone could ask for. I don't know what we'd do without you. Love always, Alma." I read it twice. Generous. The word used to make me proud. Now it felt synonymous with gullible, with foolish, with used. I placed the card face down on my desk and continued working. Near midnight, I checked social media one final time. Alma's latest post, uploaded an hour ago. "Cruise vacation tomorrow. So excited. Dreams do come true." 68 likes already. Comments from friends. "Have the best time. You deserve this. So happy for you guys." I took a screenshot, saved it to my evidence folder, then closed my laptop. Walking through my house, I turned off lights one by one. In the hallway, I passed the framed photo from Alma's wedding. She wore white lace. Glenn wore a gray suit, both smiling like they'd won the lottery. I'd paid for half that wedding when Glenn's parents couldn't contribute their share. I didn't take the photo down. It stayed on the wall. But I stopped looking at it with sentiment. It was just evidence now. Everything was evidence. In bed, I stared at the dark ceiling. Tomorrow they'd fly away on their stolen vacation. Monday I'd meet with Roberta Miller. The machinery would begin moving, slow, methodical, inevitable. My name was on that property deed. My money filled that bank statement. My patience had limits. Those limits had been reached. The weekend passed in careful stillness. Saturday I worked in my yard, trimming hedges with mechanical precision. Sunday I organized my garage, sorting tools into labeled drawers. I didn't call anyone. No one called me. Monday morning arrived cool and bright. I dressed in a charcoal suit, white shirt, navy tie, the uniform of serious business. By 9:30, I was driving toward downtown Phoenix, my folder of documents on the passenger seat. Roberta Miller's office occupied the 6th floor of a mirrored building off Central Avenue. I'd worked with her firm years ago on municipal planning projects. She knew I wasn't dramatic, wasn't reactive. When I called about property law, she took me seriously. The receptionist showed me to a conference room at exactly 10 o'clock. Roberta entered 2 minutes later, extending her hand with a firm grip. Late 50s, silver hair cut short, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. "Clark, it's been too long." She sat across from me, opening a fresh legal pad. "Tell me what's going on." I removed documents from my folder, placing them on the polished table in organized stacks. Property documents first, then financial records, then communication history. She picked up the property deed, examined it closely, set it aside, moved to the bank statements, scanning the highlighted transfers. Her expression remained neutral, professional, but I saw understanding flicker in her eyes. "This is clear cut," she said after 20 minutes of review. "You own the property outright. There's no rental agreement. You have documentation of repeated loan requests with promises of repayment." She tapped the text message printouts. "Legally, you're on solid ground. How long will the eviction process take?" 30 days if they cooperate." She made a note on her pad. "Maybe 45 if they fight it, but they won't win. You have every legal right to reclaim your property." I pointed to one specific bank statement. "This one, $8,500. She said it was for her mother-in-law's surgery. Emergency operation, couldn't wait." I kept my voice level. 2 weeks later, she's posting pictures of a new SUV. Roberta studied the date, the amount, my highlighted notation. The reason for the loan doesn't matter legally. What matters is she acknowledged it as a loan and promised repayment. These text messages prove that. "When you send these documents, they're on a cruise ship. They'll get the email at sea." "Good." Roberta leaned back in her chair. "Gives them time to think about their situation before they get home. Sometimes distance provides clarity. Or panic." "That too." She called her paralegal through the intercom. Sandra appeared moments later, efficient-looking woman in her 30s, tablet in hand. Roberta explained what we needed. Formal notice to vacate for the property. Demand for repayment letter for the loans. Both on firm letterhead, both sent certified mail and email for documentation purposes. Sandra worked quickly, her fingers flying across her tablet keyboard. She glanced up occasionally, asking clarifying questions. "Property address? Occupant names? Total debt amount?" I provided each answer precisely. No hesitation. Within 40 minutes, Sandra printed documents on heavy law firm letterhead. She prepared certified mail labels, addressed envelopes. She looked up at me, stylus poised over her tablet. "Mr. Wood, can you confirm this email address for your daughter?" She read it aloud. My daughter's email. I'd helped her set it up 15 years ago when she started college. "That's correct." I paused. "Send both documents." "Sending now." I watched the tablet screen over Sandra's shoulder. The email composition window filled with text. Subject line, legal notice, time, sensitive. 2 PDF attachments. Notice 2, vacate, PDF, and demand 4, repayment, PDF. I could stop this with one word. I said nothing. Sandra tapped send. The screen showed a brief spinning circle, then message sent successfully. 10:47 a.m. I exhaled slowly. The cruise ship had left San Diego 2 hours ago. 8:47, Phoenix time, accounting for the time zone difference. They were probably settling into their stateroom right now, unpacking suitcases, planning which restaurants to try first, taking selfies on the deck. Alma's phone would buzz with the email notification. She'd see my attorney's name in the sender field. She'd open it with confusion, maybe irritation at business interrupting her vacation. Then she'd read the words. Notice to vacate. Demand for repayment. 30 days to leave the property. 60 days to begin repayment or face civil lawsuit. I imagined her face draining of color. Glenn reading over her shoulder, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. Floyd wandering past their cabin, oblivious, asking if they wanted to grab lunch at the buffet. Roberta drew a timeline on her notepad, walking me through scenarios. Best case, they leave quietly and negotiate a payment plan. Worst case, they refuse to leave and force court eviction, refuse to pay and force civil lawsuit. Either way, the law is clearly on your side. What about my chances of actually collecting the debt? We'll start with wage garnishment if they won't negotiate. Glenn has a job, right? Commercial real estate, makes decent money. Then we have options. She made another note. One more thing, she'll likely try to contact you, probably multiple times. You're not required to speak with her. Any communication can go through this office. I stood, gathering my copies of the documents. I understand. I paused at the door, but I'll answer when she calls. She deserves to hear my voice when she realizes what's happening. Roberta nodded once, no judgment in her expression, just acknowledgement. I paid the retainer fee at the front desk, $2,500 for both matters, then rode the elevator down 6 floors. My footsteps echoed in the parking garage. I found my car, got in, sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. The documents were sent. The timeline was set. The machinery of justice was moving forward, slow and methodical and inevitable. I started the car and drove home through midday traffic, the Arizona sun bright and merciless overhead. It was done. I didn't hear from Alma for 3 days. I knew she was at sea, enjoying her stolen vacation. I went about my routine, worked on some consulting projects for municipal clients, reorganized files in my home office, took long walks in the evening heat. On the 3rd day of their cruise, while I was having lunch at home, my phone started buzzing. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. I glanced at the screen. Alma. I set the phone face down on the table and kept eating my sandwich. Later, I learned what had happened. The first 2 days of the cruise had been everything they'd hoped for. The ship was luxurious, gleaming corridors, multiple restaurants, a theater with evening shows. Floyd boasted to other passengers about how his family took care of him. Glenn won $40 at the ship's casino. Alma posted photos on social media. Sunset from the deck, elaborate buffet spreads, the 3 of them smiling with tropical drinks. On the 3rd morning, the ship docked at Cabo San Lucas. While Glenn and Floyd signed up for a fishing excursion, Alma decided to stay on board. She'd sleep in, maybe get a massage, definitely check her email using the ship's Wi-Fi. She'd been offline for 2 full days and felt disconnected from the world. She sat in the ship's internet cafe, a small room with 6 computer stations and terrible lighting. $29.99 for a 1-hour Wi-Fi package. She paid with her credit card and waited for her inbox to load. Promotional emails, social media notifications, a message from her dentist about an upcoming appointment, then one that made her stomach drop. Miller and Associates Legal Services. Legal notice, time sensitive. Her finger hovered over the screen. Miller and Associates. She didn't recognize the name. Legal notice. Her father's name in the preview text. She tapped it. The email opened. 2 PDF attachments. Notice 2. Vacate premises PDF. And formal demand for debt repayment. PDF. The first document loaded slowly on the weak ship connection. Official letterhead. Legal language. You are hereby notified that your tenancy of the property located at her address, her home, is terminated effective 30 days from receipt of this notice. She scrolled down. Her father's signature, his attorney's signature. Date, Monday, June 16th, 2025, 4 days ago. The second document was worse, an itemized list. March 15th, 2019, 8:05, stated purpose, medical emergency. April 8th, 2020, 3,200, stated purpose, car repairs, on and on. Every loan she'd ever asked for, listed with dates and dollar amounts. Total, $34,000. Payment in full or arrangement for repayment plan must be initiated within 60 days, or debtor faces, civil lawsuit, and potential wage garnishment. Alma stood so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor. An elderly woman at the next computer station glared at her. Alma didn't notice. She ran from the internet cafe, through the ship's corridors, her sandals slapping against polished floors. Passengers moved aside, startled by her urgency. In her cabin, she grabbed her phone with shaking hands, dialed her father's number. International call charges be damned. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. She hung up and dialed again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Again. She didn't know that after the 3rd call I'd blocked her number. Every subsequent attempt went straight to voicemail, without ever ringing on my end. By the time Glenn and Floyd returned from their fishing excursion, sunburned, cheerful, Floyd carrying a photo of himself holding a marlin, Alma was hysterical. She'd called 15 times, sent a dozen text messages that I had read but not answered. What happened? Glenn dropped his tackle box, hurrying to where Alma sat on the bed, her face red and blotchy. She shoved her phone at him. "Read it!" Glenn scrolled through the documents, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. Floyd read over his shoulder, squinting at the screen. That manipulative old man. Floyd's voice boomed in the small cabin. He planned this. Waited until we were trapped on a ship so we couldn't respond. Glenn kept reading, his jaw tightening. Is this real? All these amounts? Of course it's not all real. Alma's voice cracked. Some of it, yes, but $34,000? Glenn's eyes found hers. Alma! We were going to pay him back. Things have just been tight, and... This is harassment, Floyd interrupted. Legal harassment. We should sue him for emotional distress. Glenn ignored his father. When did you plan to tell me we owed your dad $34,000? I tried calling him, Alma said desperately. He won't answer. He's not responding to my texts. We need to get off this ship. We need to go home and fix this. We're in Mexico, Glenn said flatly. We can't just leave. The ship returns in 4 days. Floyd paced the narrow cabin. This is illegal. Has to be. You can't evict family. He's not evicting family. Glenn's voice was cold. He's evicting tenants who never paid rent. 4 more days at sea. 4 days of Alma sending text messages that went unanswered. Dad, please answer. Dad, we need to talk. This is insane. You can't do this. Answer your phone. I read each one as it arrived. My expression never changed. The messages escalated. Pleading, please, Dad, let's talk about this. There's been a misunderstanding. Explaining, we were going to pay you back. Things have just been tight. Bargaining. I can start making payments immediately. Just don't evict us. Then angry. How can you do this to your own daughter? Finally threatening, you'll regret this. Everyone will know what kind of person you are. I took screenshots of the threatening messages and forwarded them to Roberta Miller. Then I muted the conversation. The rest of their cruise was miserable. Alma barely ate. Glenn spent hours on the ship's Wi-Fi researching Arizona tenant law, getting conflicting information from legal websites. Floyd alternated between rage and strategy sessions. When we get back, we'll fight this properly. Get our own lawyer. Other passengers noticed their tension. The family that had been so happy, so celebratory, was now huddled in corners having urgent whispered conversations. They skipped evening shows, left dinners early. The dream vacation had become a floating nightmare. Meanwhile, I went to the gym, cooked healthy meals, met a friend for coffee, slept soundly. The machinery was in motion. Nothing they said or did from a cruise ship in Mexican waters would stop it. They returned home on a Sunday evening. I knew their flight schedule. I'd seen it on the original cruise itinerary. I imagined them driving through Phoenix at sunset, the city lights spreading out below the mountain preserve, Alma staring out the window with dread. I was in my backyard watering tomato plants when my phone rang. 7:45 p.m. Alma's number. I'd unblocked it that morning, knowing this call would come. Let her think I'd been ignoring her all week simply by choice. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Alma? Dad? Her voice was raw, exhausted. We need to talk. We just got home. There's the house. There's certified mail taped to the front door. I'd known about that. The certified letters had been returned to Roberta Miller's office after delivery attempts failed. No one home to sign for them. Standard procedure. Tape them to the door. Everything documented, everything proper. Yes, I said. Those are copies of the documents you received electronically. Dad, please, can we come over? We need to talk face to face. No. The single word hung between us. What do you mean, no? I'm your daughter. And you stole from me, I said calmly. I walked inside, closing the patio door behind me. You lied to me repeatedly. You took my cruise and gave it to Glenn's father. We don't need to meet face to face. You need to contact my attorney. How can you do this to me? You're throwing your own daughter out on the street. I sat in my living room chair, looking at the framed photos on my bookshelf. Alma at her high school graduation, Alma at her wedding, smiling, grateful, loving daughter. You have a job. Glenn has a job. You'll find another place to live. You've had 6 years of free housing. That's ended. And because of one cruise? One thing and you destroy my life? Not one thing. My voice stayed level. 6 years of things. The cruise was simply the clearest example of what you think of me. I'll pay you back, I promise. Just don't do this. Your promises don't mean anything anymore, Alma. You have 30 days. Contact my attorney if you need clarification. Dad, please. She was crying now. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Give me another chance. I looked out my window at my garden, at the roses I'd planted last spring. You made your choice when you gave my cruise spot to Floyd. I'm making mine now. I pressed the red button. The call ended. I set my phone on the side table and returned to my book. At Alma's house, my house, the scene was different. Alma threw her phone across the room. It bounced off a couch cushion and landed on the carpet. Screen intact, but her frustration unspent. She collapsed onto the couch, pulling a throw pillow against her chest, sobbing. Glenn sat beside her, saying nothing. What could he say? Floyd paced, muttering about heartless old men and legal battles. After 20 minutes, Glenn stood and retrieved his laptop from their bedroom. He opened it at the kitchen table and began typing searches. 3-bedroom house, rent Phoenix, Arizona. Arizona tenant rights without lease. Eviction notice response options. The results were clear and consistent. Without a lease agreement, they had no legal leg to stand on. 30 days was generous. Arizona law allowed property owners to terminate at-will tenancy with as little as 10 days' notice in some circumstances. We need to focus on the practical, Glenn said, his voice cutting through Alma's sobs and Floyd's rants. We have less than 26 days to find a place and move. This is what he wants. Floyd jabbed a finger toward nothing in particular. He wants you to roll over. He wants us out of his house, Dad, and legally he can have that. Glenn's exhaustion showed in every word. Fighting costs money we don't have and time we don't have. Alma lifted her head. How much do we need? To move? Glenn had already calculated it. 5,000, maybe 6. First month's rent, security deposit, truck rental, utility deposits at a new place. He paused. Plus application fees. Plus paying someone to help us move heavy furniture. We don't have that, Alma whispered. I know. Glenn met her eyes. We'll figure something out. Credit cards. Maybe a personal loan. We don't have a choice. We have savings, Alma said desperately. $2,800. That covers maybe half of what we need, and then we're broke. Glenn's fingers moved across his laptop keyboard. Rental applications require proof of income. First month, last month, security deposit. Some places want all 3. We're looking at $2,600 to $2,800 a month for a 3-bedroom in a decent area. The numbers were crushing. They'd lived rent-free for so long that budgeting had become abstract. Glenn's income paid for car payments, insurance, their children's activities, groceries, dinners out. Alma's income went to shopping, household items, savings, except the savings rarely accumulated because there was always something they needed. What about the $34,000? Floyd asked. Can't you just ignore that? No. Glenn pulled up one of the legal websites he'd found. If we don't respond to the debt demand within 60 days, he can file civil suit. Once he has a judgment, he can garnish wages, place liens on any property we acquire, damage our credit for years. So we're supposed to find $6,000 to move and start paying him back. Alma's voice rose. How? Glenn closed his laptop. I don't know yet, but we have 3 weeks to figure it out, so we need to start now. He opened a notebook and wrote a header. Plan. Below it, numbered items. 1. Find rental property. Budget $2,600 month max. 2. Apply for personal loan or increase credit card limits. 3. Schedule moving truck. 4. Start packing. 5. List furniture we can sell to raise cash. 6. Contact Dad's attorney about debt repayment plan. Alma watched him write. You're really going to negotiate with him? After what he's doing? He's within his legal rights. Glenn's pen didn't stop moving. Being angry doesn't change that. We respond professionally and hope for reasonable terms. Reasonable? Floyd's voice dripped contempt. There's nothing reasonable about this. Glenn looked at his father directly. You know what's not reasonable. Living in someone else's house for 6 years without paying rent. Borrowing $34,000 and never paying it back. Lying about medical emergencies to fund car purchases. His voice stayed calm, but something hard had entered it. Clark isn't being unreasonable. We were. The room went silent. Floyd sat down heavily. Alma stared at Glenn like she didn't recognize him. Glenn returned to his notebook, adding more items to the list. The only sound was his pen scratching paper and the hum of the refrigerator. Outside, the Phoenix night had fully settled. Somewhere across the city, in a different house, I was reading my book in peaceful quiet. The machinery continued its work. 2 days after they returned from the cruise, Alma made an appointment with an attorney. Not my attorney, her own. I learned about this later through Roberta, who received a call from Marcus Chen's office requesting copies of the eviction documents. I wasn't concerned. The law was clear, and all my documentation was in order. While Alma sat in a downtown office searching for loopholes, I was home organizing my second property for new tenants, real tenants this time, with proper lease agreements. Marcus Chen's office occupied the 3rd floor of a building on East Jefferson Street. Alma arrived 15 minutes early, clutching a folder containing printed copies of the eviction notice and debt demand. She'd barely slept in 2 days. Marcus met her in his conference room, mid-40s, professional demeanor, patient eyes. He listened while she explained her situation, occasionally taking notes on a yellow legal pad. I've lived in that house for 6 years, Alma said, her voice tight. My father never asked for rent before. We had an arrangement. Then suddenly he's evicting me over one argument. Marcus set down his pen. Do you have a rental agreement? Any written lease? Alma's face fell. No, it was informal. Family arrangement. Marcus pulled up documents on his laptop, comparing them against Arizona statutes, displayed on a second monitor. After 15 minutes of reading, he leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Cranston, I need to be honest with you. Without a rental agreement, you're classified under Arizona law as a guest at will, not a tenant. Your father has the legal right to terminate your occupancy with 30-day notice. He tapped the eviction document, which he's provided. But there has to be something. I could file motions to delay the process, maybe buy you a week, possibly 2. Marcus's tone remained professional, but firm. It would cost between $2,500 and $3,500 in legal fees, and ultimately you'd still lose. Worse, fighting and losing creates a formal eviction record that makes renting elsewhere extremely difficult. Alma stared at the table. So I'm just supposed to leave? My professional advice? Start looking for new housing immediately. Use the remaining time productively. Marcus pulled up the debt demand document. Now about this $34,000? Can I ignore it? Marcus scrolled through the attached evidence. Bank transfers, text messages. These aren't gifts, Mrs. Cranston. You acknowledge them as loans in writing. Multiple times. If your father files a civil suit, he'll almost certainly win a judgment. Then he can garnish wages, levy bank accounts, damage your credit for years. He looked at her directly. Fighting this costs money you don't have, and the outcome is predictable. Alma felt walls closing in. So what do I do? Negotiate a payment plan if possible, some monthly amount you can sustain. Marcus paused, though given the circumstances, I'm not sure he's interested in negotiating. He's not, Alma whispered. That evening, Alma sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open. Glenn and Floyd had gone to bed. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. She opened Facebook and began typing. The post took 30 minutes to craft. She wrote about a heartless father evicting his daughter and grandchildren over one disagreement, about years of family loyalty being thrown away, about elderly parents who forget what family means. She didn't mention the free housing, the unpaid loans, or why her father was angry. Just selective facts, arranged to paint him as the villain. Her finger hovered over the post button. She clicked it. Then she shared the post to 3 Phoenix community groups. Within an hour, comments appeared. Some of Alma's friends expressed shock. That's terrible. How can a father do that? Praying for you. but others asked questions. Why were you living in his house? Were you paying rent? What was the disagreement about? A woman who'd worked with me on a municipal project commented, I know Clark Wood professionally. He's one of the most reasonable people I've met. There's always two sides to these stories. Floyd added his own comment. Manipulative old man thinks he can control everyone. This is what happens when people get bitter and small. His aggressive tone backfired. Several people responded with variations of, Wait, you're the father-in-law. Aren't you living in the Cruz situation? Alma refreshed the page obsessively. The support she'd hoped for wasn't materializing. Instead, uncomfortable details were emerging through questions she couldn't answer without revealing more truth. By midnight, the post had 73 comments and was becoming a debate rather than the rallying cry she'd intended. The next morning, Roberta emailed me a screenshot. Thought you should see this. Want to respond publicly or pursue defamation? I read the post once. Alma had been careful. No outright lies. Just strategic omissions. I replied to Roberta. No response needed. Public opinion doesn't change property law. I didn't comment. Didn't defend myself. Didn't engage. A neighbor mentioned it to me at the grocery store. Saw something about you online. Everything all right? Family matter, I said. Being handled properly. That was all. Alma checked her Facebook post compulsively over the following days. She responded to supportive comments, ignored critical ones, deleted a few that were too pointed, but the narrative kept fragmenting. People who knew me defended my character without directly contradicting her. People who didn't know either of us asked logical questions that exposed holes in her story. By the third day, the post had run its course. New posts buried it in people's feeds. The groundswell of support never came. The public pressure she'd hoped would somehow change the situation never materialized. In my home office, I continued preparing rental applications for my second house. I'd already received inquiries from 3 interested families, all with verifiable income, references, and willingness to sign proper leases. Facebook posts didn't appear on eviction notices. Emotions didn't override property law. Sympathy wouldn't extend a legal deadline. The calendar showed 18 days remaining. The machinery continued its work, indifferent to social media outrage that never quite happened. On day 25 of the 30-day notice period, Roberta called me. They haven't moved. I drove by this morning, cars in the driveway, curtains open, clearly still occupied. Do we proceed? I was in my backyard, trimming rose bushes. I set down my pruning shears. File the eviction lawsuit. We gave them 30 days. They chose not to use it. Court date will be about a week out. This will be public record. I'm aware. File it anyway. 2 days later, Glenn received a summons. Forcible entry and detainer action. Court date, July 18th, 10 a.m. He sat at the kitchen table reading the legal document, his hands shaking slightly. We're being sued, he said to Alma. Your father is actually taking us to court. Can he do that? Floyd demanded, reading over Glenn's shoulder. Apparently, yes. Glenn's voice was flat. We've been formally served. That night, Floyd drank too much. Around 11 p.m., my phone rang. Floyd's number. I considered not answering, and then decided to. I pressed the record button on my phone app. Arizona is a one-party consent state, and accepted the call. Clark Wood, I said. You think you're tough? Floyd's words slurred slightly. Taking advantage of your own daughter? Real men don't do that. Maybe somebody needs to teach you a lesson about respect. I kept my voice calm, deliberately clear. Floyd, are you threatening me? I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. I'm saying people like you get what's coming. You keep pushing, you'll find out. I see. Thank you for clarifying. I ended the call. The recording was saved automatically. I emailed it to Roberta with a brief note. Documentation of harassment. Retained for possible future action. The court hearing was brief. 20 minutes from start to finish. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Roberta. Alma, Glenn, and Floyd sat at the defendant's table with no attorney. The judge, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and no patience for drama, reviewed the file before calling the case. Wood versus Cranston, forcible entry and detainer. She looked up. Mrs. Cranston, do you have any written agreement with the property owner? Alma stood. No, Your Honor. He's my father. It was informal. The relationship doesn't change property law. The judge's tone was matter-of-fact, not unkind. Without a rental agreement, you're occupying the property as a guest. The owner has terminated that arrangement with proper notice. You've had 33 days. She glanced at the calendar. Judgment for plaintiff. Defendants have 7 days to vacate. If you're not out by July 25th, the sheriff will remove you. The gavel came down. Alma stared at the judge in disbelief. Floyd muttered something angry that I didn't catch. Glenn helped Alma stand. Her legs seemed unsteady. In the parking lot, I walked to my car without looking at them. Behind me, I heard Alma crying. Glenn's voice low and urgent. Floyd's complaints about the rigged system. I drove home feeling tired but not triumphant. This was necessary, not enjoyable. That evening, Glenn got serious about apartment hunting. He'd been passively looking before, hoping something would change. Now, with a 7-day sheriff's deadline, hope was irrelevant. He found a 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. Older buildings, small units, but clean and available immediately. $18.50 a month. Same amount for security deposit. First month up front. It's smaller than what we had, the apartment manager said, showing Glenn and Alma through the unit the next day. But it's what I've got available now. Glenn looked at Alma. She said nothing, her face blank. We'll take it, Glenn said. When can we sign? Right now if you've got the deposit. Glenn pulled out his credit card, a cash advance at 27% APR. The available credit barely covered deposits and first month's rent. Let's do it. They signed a proper lease. 12-month term. Rent due first of each month. Late fees specified. Pet policy outlined. Everything formal, legal, binding. Everything they'd never had with me. Over the next 4 days, they moved. Glenn rented a truck. A few friends helped carry furniture. Floyd complained about his back, but didn't lift anything heavy. Alma packed boxes mechanically, her movements automatic. I didn't watch them move. I stayed in my first house, working on consulting projects, maintaining my routine. Roberta texted me updates. Truck's there. Looks like they're making progress. House appears cleared out. On July 24th, Glenn called me. The first time we'd spoken directly since this began. The house is empty, he said. His voice was exhausted. We're out. Keys are on the kitchen counter. Thank you for letting me know. The debt, Glenn said. The $34,000. We can't pay it all. But I want to set up a payment plan. Something manageable. I leaned back in my chair. This wasn't Alma calling. This was Glenn, the one who'd finally seen reality clearly. Have your wife contact Roberta Miller's office. They'll discuss terms. She won't. Glenn paused. She's not in a good place right now. Can I handle this directly? You can try. Roberta will need Alma's agreement in writing since the debt is in her name. I'll get it. Glenn sounded determined. I'll make this right. We'll see, I said, and ended the call. The next day I drove to my second house, the house I'd owned for 15 years, the house where Alma had lived rent-free for 6 years, the house that was finally mine again. I walked through empty rooms. They'd cleaned reasonably well. Some minor damage, scuff marks on walls, scratches on hardwood floors. Nothing major, nothing worth pursuing. In the living room, afternoon light streamed through windows they'd left open. The house felt different, lighter, mine. I stood in the silence, keys in my hand, and exhaled slowly. The eviction was complete. The property recovered, the legal precedent established. One phase ended. Another, the debt collection, was just beginning. 6 days after the judge's ruling, they moved out. I didn't go to the house that day. I didn't want to see Alma's tears or Floyd's glares. Didn't want any dramatic final confrontation. I stayed home, working in my garden, occasionally checking my phone for Roberta's text, confirming they'd left. It came at 4 in the afternoon. Property vacated. Keys left on kitchen counter. I waited another hour before driving over to inspect what they'd left behind. The house felt hollow when I entered. Empty rooms echoed my footsteps. Most furniture was gone. Alma had taken pieces I'd given her over the years, which I'd expected. The living room where her children had played showed rectangular impressions in the carpet where furniture had stood. Darker patches marked 6 years of occupation. I walked through systematically, phone in hand, photographing each room. Missing items caught my attention. The coffee table I'd bought specifically for this house. Some framed artwork from the hallway. various kitchen utensils, bathroom towels, light bulbs removed from fixtures, small acts of petty revenge, totaling maybe $200 or $300 in value. Not worth pursuing. In the master bedroom, I opened the closet. Empty hangers. A single sock forgotten in the corner. I photographed the space, made notes on my phone. Carpet cleaning required. Paint touch-ups in hallway. Minor repairs to closet door. The house was structurally sound. It would rent easily once cleaned. I stood in the empty living room as afternoon light slanted through western windows. For 6 years, this space had housed my daughter's family. Birthday parties, holiday dinners, children growing, all of it happening while I paid the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, the maintenance costs. I felt nothing but relief. The house could breathe again. I locked up and drove home, already reviewing the 3 rental applications Roberta had forwarded. Proper tenants this time, background checks, employment verification, legal lease agreements. No more family favors. 1 week after the move-out, Roberta sent Alma the formal debt repayment demand via certified mail and email. The letter was clear and professional. $34,000 owed, itemized list of loans with supporting documentation attached, 30 days to respond with payment plan or full payment. Failure to respond would result in civil lawsuit. Alma received it on a Tuesday morning. She sat at the small kitchen table in her cramped 2-bedroom apartment, reading through the pages. The itemized list looked brutal in black and white. $8,500, $3,200, $2,800, plus multiple smaller amounts. Each entry included the date, bank transfer record, and screenshots of her own text messages promising repayment. The evidence was undeniable. She set the letter face down on the table, walked to the kitchen drawer, and filed it away. "What are you going to do about it?" Glenn asked that evening. "He's bluffing. He got his house back. He made his point. He won't actually sue." Glenn looked at her for a long moment. "Alma, I don't think... He won't sue his own daughter. I know him. This is just intimidation." Glenn was too exhausted to argue. They ignored the demand. 30 days passed. I met with Roberta in her office on a Wednesday morning. She had all documents prepared. She'd been ready for this outcome for weeks. "File the lawsuit," I said. She nodded, opened her laptop, and began the electronic filing process. I watched over her shoulder as she uploaded documents. Bank transfer records, text message screenshots, emails, the unanswered demand letter. The filing fee was $349. I paid it without hesitation. The confirmation appeared on screen. Case filed successfully. Civil action for debt collection. Case number CV-205 08547. Court date August 28th, 2025, 9:30 a.m. "Done," Roberta said. 2 days later, Alma received the civil summons. A sheriff's deputy knocked on her apartment door, handed her the envelope, had her sign for it. She opened it with shaking hands. Her father wasn't bluffing. Glenn's reaction when she showed him, "We need to find money for a payment plan. Now." But they were stretched impossibly thin. New rent, $150 monthly. The security deposit and first month had maxed out their credit cards. Moving costs had drained their savings to $400. Glenn made about $7,000 monthly. After rent, car payments, insurance, utilities, food, and minimum credit card payments, they had maybe $1,100 left each month. The $34,000 judgment loomed like a mountain they couldn't climb. Floyd called me 3 days after Alma received the summons. "Let's put this behind us," he said, his tone attempting conciliation. "Family is family. Forget the money. Let them start fresh." "Floyd, the lawsuit proceeds as filed. Don't contact me again." I ended the call and blocked his number. 2 days later, he showed up at my house. I watched from my living room window as he parked in my driveway, walked to my front door, and knocked. He waited. Knocked again. Called out my name. I didn't move. After 5 minutes, he returned to his car and drove away. I texted Roberta. Floyd attempted contact at my residence despite being told not to. Documented on doorbell camera. Time-stamped footage available if needed. Her response, noted. Will include in case file if he escalates. Floyd's power and authority had proven meaningless against legal process. He slunk back to his own home, diminished and irrelevant. The court date approached. Glenn contacted Marcus Chen. The attorney Alma had consulted months ago. With limited funds, they paid $1,500 for Marcus to represent them at the hearing. Marcus reviewed the evidence and delivered honest advice. We can't win. The documentation is overwhelming. Best strategy is to request a payment plan rather than lump sum judgment. Alma wanted to fight anyway. Marcus gently explained that fighting without grounds was wasting money they desperately needed. On August 26th, 2 days before the hearing, I received rental applications from a young couple. Both teachers, solid income, excellent references. I approved their application, signed a 1-year lease, and scheduled their move-in for September 1st. The circle was closing. My property would house proper tenants. My debt would be acknowledged legally. My boundaries would be legally enforced. Everything I'd worked toward since that phone call from Floyd about the cruise. The machinery had done its work. Now came the final judgment. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. 20 rows of benches, fluorescent lighting, the seal of Arizona mounted behind the judge's bench. August heat pressed against the building outside, but aggressive air conditioning made the courtroom almost cold. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Roberta. Alma, Glenn, and Marcus Chen sat at the defendant's table. Floyd was somewhere behind us. I didn't turn around to look. The judge entered. We stood. She sat. We sat. Civil action CV 2025-8547. Wood versus Cranston. Debt collection matter. The judge glanced at her file. Ms. Miller, present your case. Roberta stood, professional and precise. She submitted exhibits, bank transfer records, printed text messages, emails, the unanswered demand letter. She walked the judge through the timeline. 6 years of loans, each one requested with promises of repayment, none ever repaid. The evidence shows clear acknowledgement of debt, Roberta said. The defendant explicitly described these transfers as loans in writing, repeatedly promised repayment, and never contested the debt until legal action became necessary. The judge examined the documents, looked at Marcus Chen. Defense? Marcus stood. He looked tired. Your Honor, these were family transactions. My client's father helped her during difficult times. The informal nature of family communications doesn't necessarily indicate legal debt obligation. Mr. Chen. The judge held up a text message screenshot. Your client wrote, and I quote, "I'll pay you back next month, Dad. Promise." Does that sound informal, or does it sound like acknowledgement of debt? Marcus hesitated. Family communications are often casual. But they do reflect acknowledgement of debt. Continue, Ms. Miller. Roberta presented the remaining evidence efficiently. The pattern was undeniable. Request for money. Promise to repay. Money transferred. No repayment. Repeat. $34,000 over 6 years. Marcus made his closing argument. Your Honor, imposing a judgment would create severe financial hardship. My client has 3 children, limited income. Mr. Chen, hardship doesn't erase debt. It may affect payment terms, but not the existence of the debt itself. The judge closed the file. The evidence overwhelmingly supports that these were loans with acknowledged repayment obligation. Judgment for plaintiff. $34,000. She paused, looked at Alma. Given your financial situation, I'm ordering structured payments. 12 monthly installments of approximately $2,833. First payment due. September 15th. Failure to comply will result in wage garnishment. The gavel struck. It was over in 23 minutes. Outside the courtroom, we waited for the elevator. Alma stood 10 feet away, staring at nothing. Glenn talked quietly with Marcus Chen. Floyd muttered angry words I couldn't hear. The elevator arrived. We all entered, separate groups in the same small space. The doors closed. I looked at Alma. She looked at the floor. I'm not cruel, Alma, I said quietly. I just stopped being your free resource. Maybe someday you'll understand that boundaries aren't punishment. They're necessary. She didn't respond, just looked at me briefly, then away. The elevator opened. I stepped out first, Roberta beside me. We walked across the lobby and into the Phoenix heat without looking back. In the parking garage, as Glenn unlocked their car, Alma finally spoke. $2,800 a month. For a year. How are we going to do this? We'll figure it out, Glenn said. We have to. From the back seat, Floyd started. This is ridiculous. You could appeal. Dad, stop. Glenn's voice was sharp, final. Just stop. We lost. It's over. Floyd fell silent. For once, he had no response. That evening, I sat on my back patio, watching the sunset paint the Phoenix sky in shades of orange and purple. My phone rang. Roberta. First payment posted today, she said. Full amount, on time. They're complying with the judgment. Good. I felt something release in my chest. That's all I wanted, not free money, but accountability. How are you feeling about everything? I considered the question. Peaceful, like I finally set down something heavy I'd been carrying too long. You did the right thing, Clark. I know. We said goodbye. I set my phone aside and returned to watching the sunset. The next week, new tenants moved into my second house. The young teachers, excited, grateful, professional. They signed their lease, paid their first month's rent and security deposit, took their keys with genuine appreciation. I showed them how the thermostat worked, explained the sprinkler system for the front yard, gave them my contact information for maintenance issues. Thank you so much, the wife said. We've been looking for months. This is perfect for us. Glad it worked out, I said. I locked the door behind me as I left, feeling lighter than I had in years. Over the following weeks, payments arrived like clockwork. September 15th, 2033. October 15th, 2033. Alma and Glenn were keeping their agreement, probably through sacrifice and tight budgets, but they were doing it. I didn't track Alma's social media anymore, didn't ask mutual acquaintances about her life. The connection was severed, not through anger, but through necessity. She needed to build a life without using me as a foundation. I needed to live without being used. In late September, I booked a cruise. Not to Mexico. I chose Alaska instead. A different experience entirely. I'd finally take the vacation I'd been owed on my own terms, paid for with my own money. The morning I left for the airport, I stood in my living room looking at the photo from Alma's wedding. She wore white lace, smiled brilliantly, full of hope for her future. I'd been so proud that day. I left the photo on the wall. It was part of my history, even if that relationship had changed irrevocably. You don't erase the past. You learn from it and move forward. At the airport, waiting for my flight, I felt the weight of the past months lift completely. The revenge I'd pursued wasn't about punishment. It was about enforcing boundaries, demanding accountability, refusing to be taken advantage of anymore. Justice. That's what I'd sought. And justice, cold and impartial and absolute, was what I'd received. My boarding group was called. I picked up my carry-on bag and walked toward the gate, leaving Phoenix behind, heading toward Alaskan glaciers and new horizons. The machinery had completed its work. The scales were balanced. I was free. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.